music.
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready? The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it.
Attaboy.
Let me drive. I won't make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind?
That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It isn't like it being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm gonna give you an engine, low to the ground, extra big oil pan will cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when he runs so close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm gonna give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm gonna shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this.
And when we get you primed, painted, and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last. There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darrell Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
I mean, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? I mean, come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. Sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
Yeah, you gotta learn to trust something. Might just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, we can drive. We can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
Look out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes, every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it? What we do, it's passion, love, which is why we are prepared to risk our lives for it.
Racing. That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem is?
That you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never gonna get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my own.
Please let me race.
Fine. Then let's race.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are back once again in Sepang, this time for the League One race here at the Malaysian circuit. My name is Topher Smith, and alongside me, Tom Cairns. And Tom, we had an absolutely fantastic League Two race yesterday, won by the Pacific Grand Prix of Romain Grosjean, his and the team's first win of the season. Today, we're expecting another cracker around the circuit. How do you see this one going in a League One race, Tom?
See it being just as good as the League Two race yesterday. So, I mean, Grosjean, who we felt was going to be doing the two-stop, decided to do an early first stint. Come in for his only stop very, very early on, and was able to make the tyres last and win the race comfortably with the demises of the Rouge cars and Adrian Sutill's HRT and others that fell by the wayside. If we get a repeat of that in this one, then you know, it rounds up a solid weekend of racing here in Sepang, a circuit that we all truly love.
And Romain Grosjean, he did catch us a little bit by surprise yesterday, because if I remember correctly, he pitted on the roundabout lap 8, 9 or 10. It was very early on in the race. So we were sitting there expecting him to be on a two-stop strategy and thinking he's going to fall back into the pack and try and fight his way through to victory, where in actuality he put in a mega second stint with some preservation earlier on in the stint to get the most out of the tyres and out of the fuel, and he made it to the end on that one-stop strategy ahead of Sam Bird and Alexander Wurz, and more action there. Bird getting second place off of Wurz at the last corner of the last lap. It was absolutely fascinating watching there. And what can you expect from this race, Tom? Do you think we might see more dive bombs into the last corner as it happens?
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, if the drivers behave themselves like the League Two drivers did, then I think we're going to be in some cracking on-track battles between here and, well, from the start of the race to the end. We've got a 40-lap race as well. And with it being a League One race, there are some teams which haven't been progressing as well as others, but we've only done 2 World Championship races so far, so it's an opportunity for those to make up the ground from Taupo and the other venue, which was Adelaide.
And this race is going to be highly important, as following the conclusion of today's Grand Prix, we will have the first upgrade window of the season after the League 2 race yesterday. Some of the team managers already putting in their requests for extra doses of power and reliability. And after today's League 1 race, they will be able to do the same. Will they want to make their cars a bit more reliable to make sure they get to the end? Or maybe they want to get a bit more speed out of the car and try and push their way further to the front of the field. It's a fascinating toss-up to find that balance between the two and which one you want to go for. And so far in League 1, if we take a look at the drivers' standings, Scott Dixon took his and Simtek's first ever Grand Prix World Series victory last time out in Adelaide. The Simtek team, that was a victory that was a long time coming for them, Tom. They were winless in Season 1 and arguably in positions where they should have won races, and last time out, Dixon finally got the job done.
He did, with a little bit of help from those who were leading the venue before retiring. We saw quite a number of incidents in the Adelaide Grand Prix, but Scott Dixon kept his car clean, out of trouble, and won comfortably in the end over Andre Lotterer. Scott Dixon, who excelled last season in replacement of Marcus Ericsson, the Simtech team. Scott Woodwis, the team manager of the base, will be delighted with him. And if Scott Dixon can produce an equally good performance, then that would be fantastic. He's starting 12th on the grid, which is a bit of a surprise. But you don't get any points for qualifying. It's the race that matters. And if Scott Dixon finds his way through the field, then he could be in the frame for a good points haul here today. And without me being too biased, I mean, the Prost guys are maybe not where they need to be. De La Rosa 11th and Alguersuari 19th, and your boys at Super Aguri, De Costa in 3rd and Fines in 4th. So you've probably got a much better chance of winning today, Topher. But as commentators, we are trying to keep our views balanced for this one. But either way, we're here for an exhilarating race.
So yes, me and Tom, we do have our own teams in this league, as do a lot of our team managers who were in it in Season 1. They've carried over into Season 2. The Simtech team being led by Scott Woodwis. We've got Arrows led by Emma Butterworth. We've got the BR team led by Tom Butterworth, the husband of Emma. And Tom is also the reigning champion of the Grand Prix World Series. But at the moment, maybe not the start to the season that he would have wanted. He's got Sebastian Buemi up there in 4th in the championship. But reigning champion Jean-Eric Verne, he's not having the best start to the season so far. And he will start in 10th position today. Looking at the points table here, Kamui Kobayashi, he was the winner in the opening race at Taupo. He's got 25 points on the board, not adding to that at the last race of the attritional Adelaide Grand Prix. Scott Dixon leading the championship by virtue of his victory last time out. Lotter is up there in 3rd, Buemi's in 4th. And we've got the Onyx of Takuma Sato in 5th place, Magnussen on 16, DaCosta and Nakajima on 15 each. Jeff Gordon up there in 9th place in the championship with 12 points. He was a surprise package earlier on in the season, as he took a 4th place finish at Taupo, I think it was. He took 4th place in Adelaide, my apologies. 4th place in Adelaide means he is up in 9th in the championship, and Paul di Resta from Midland in 10th. Now let's have a quick look at the team standings going into this race. Onyx Grand Prix 1 point ahead of Simtech. Onyx yet to win a Grand Prix, but they have consistently scored points so far this season. They have a 1 point advantage over Simtech. Arrows in 3rd alongside Super Guri in 4th. They're equal on 25 points. Arrows ahead on countback by virtue of the victory that Kamui Kobayashi brought to them in the opening race. AGS 1 point ahead of BMS in 20th. And we have BAR, 40 Corsi Midland and Minardi all scoring points as well. It's been a fascinating opening few races so far. We're now heading into round 3 of the championship. And starting on pole today will be Nico Hulkenberg, Tom. He's yet to win a race in the Grand Prix World Series. And starting from pole today, he's in a prime position to finally take his first victory here.
You would think so. And he's had near misses in the past. It's just a matter of time before his duck is finally broken. And I'm sure Emma Butterworth will be cheering him on to get his first victory in this championship. Kamui Kobayashi, his teammate, has already won a race this year. So if Emma Butterworth can get both of her boys into race winning positions for this season, then she could be on course to be in the frame for the title this season. And she'll most definitely be looking to snatch the title from her husband's nose, Tom Butterworth, who's the team boss of the BAR squad.
So could the title stay within the Butterworth household? We will have to wait and see until the end of the season. Racing all the way up until Laguna Seca to finish out the season again. But for now, we are in Sepang, and let's head down to the grids, show you who's starting where. We've already mentioned Nico Hulkenberg is in pole position ahead of Andre Lotterer in 2nd place. It is an all-Super Aguri 2nd row, with Da Costa only 0.003 of a second ahead of Frains. And then race winner Kamui Kobayashi in 5th ahead of Takuma Sato, an all-Japanese row 3. And then we have a brilliant performance from the Minardis locking out row 4. Then we have Nakajima and Jean-Eric Verne sharing row 5 ahead of the Prost of Pedro de la Rosa and last time's race winner Scott Dixon seeing out row 6 in 12th position. Then we have Kevin Magnussen and Brendan Hartley. Hartley, the vice champion of the series. Then Sebastian Buemi and Mika Salo onto row 8. Row 9, Paul Di Resta and Thiago Montero, the Midlands there sharing the 9th row. Jaime Alguersuari heading up row 10 ahead of Simona Di Silvestre in the Lola. And Mario Andretti ahead of Tatiana Calderon, her best qualifying yet. Then we have Jamie Whincup ahead of Alexander Alpon, and propping up the grid at the back is Pietro Fittipaldi and Jeff Gordon. So Tom, a fascinating racing prospect here today. Do you have any predictions at all?
I think Hulkenberg will blast off the line, but I'm interested to see how the likes of Da Costa and Fines get on, because they usually do great starts, those two. So my eyes will be on them.
Well, we will keep an eye on them, as we will the rest of the grid. So the 5 lights are on a starting gantry. We're waiting to get the Sepang Grand Prix underway. And we are off. Hulkenberg leads away from pole position. We're riding on board with Antonio Felix da Costa. And it's that Freins coming up the inside. Robin Freins gone straight up into the lead from 4th place. You call it, Tom. The Super Guris have good starts. And Freins has gone straight from 4th into 1st there. Looking a bit further into the back of the field. A little bit of argy-bargy down there. We had the same yesterday. We end up with Nick Heidfeld having to go into the pits to replace his front wing. Not sure if we've got any damage this time around, but Robin Freins shooting away from 4th place on the grid, and he now has clear space in front of him as he leads the Sepang Grand Prix. Here is Pietro Fittipaldi in 26th place. He has lost out to Jeff Gordon at the start, and Hulkenberg already getting back of Robin Freins for the lead, so he wasted no time in getting back past the Dutchman. And Hulkenberg back into the lead of this Grand Prix, and hoping to build up as much of a gap as he can before the pit stops.
So a brilliant start from Freins, as I called it, as you mentioned, Topher. You can see Kamui Kobayashi losing the place already to the Minardi of Jos Verstappen. He's gone up to 5th place. He's made a cracker start, has Verstappen, from 7th to 5th. So a good start all round from the drivers. And Brendan Hartley, who we know he's good with his race starts, he's up from 14th. And he's already up to 8th place, Topher.
A fantastic start there for Hartley, and also looking at the graphic, and you can see there now Lotterer has also now dispatched Freins. So Freins, he got a rocket start off of the line, but has already dropped back down again. He remains in front of his teammate Antonio Felix da Costa. As we look to the end of the first lap, Hulkenberg has reassumed the lead of this race. Lotterer dispatches Freins and will now want to close up as quickly as he can to the back of that Arrows. And speaking of Arrows, it looks like it's Kamui Kobayashi having a look to get past Jos Verstappen, the fast-starting Jos Verstappen, at the same time as Da Costa goes for a move on Freins, and it's now as you were in the top 4, and make that the top 5 as Kobayashi gets back past Verstappen again. So a number of position changes already, but at the end of the first lap, the top 5 remaining exactly as they were at the start of the race, Tom.
Indeed, and you can see De La Rosa up into 8th place. He also passed Brendan Hartley at the last turn before the start-finish straight, and we just saw Kazuki Nakajima line up a move on Hartley. So after that great start, Hartley's beginning to drop back a little bit.
And you just saw there in the foreground of their last shot, Verstappen repassing Kamui Kobayashi for 5th place. So those two already having a ding-dong battle. And you would have expected that Kobayashi would be the one to come out on top of that particular battle, given that he is a race winner, not just in this season, but in the last season as well. He's clearly got a pace advantage over Verstappen, you know, in general, but in this race in particular, Verstappen seems to be absolutely on the ball at the moment. And don't forget, at this race in 2001, if you remember, Tom, when Jos Verstappen himself was in the Arrows, he was absolutely mighty around this circuit and was running in 2nd for a long time before being caught out by a late pit stop. So this particular circuit, Tom, may be suiting Verstappen a lot better than some of the other drivers.
Yeah, and it seems to be one of Verstappen's favourite racetracks, Topher, and I'm sure he would love to see himself racing there again. Of course, his son Max, race winner of the last Formula 1 race at Sepang in 2017. So the Verstappen seem to be liking the Malaysian circuit. It seems to be their kind of track.
And a couple of drivers who have suffered from poor starts here. Takuma Sato, he started this race in 6th place, right behind his countryman Kamui Kobayashi. He's now down in 13th position. He's had a horrible start to this Grand Prix. He doesn't appear to have had any damage, as he is still in this race and having not come into the pits. We can see that Kobayashi has again repassed Jos Verstappen for 5th place, as Nico Hulkenberg tries to extend his gap at the front with the fastest lap of the race. And also Sebastian Buemi, he started in 15th place. He's down to 19th now. So the Swiss driver who was brought back into the BAR team after being dropped mid-season last year, he's not having a great time of it here either. And here is Pedro de la Rosa losing out to the other Minardi of Tom Christensen. So it's not just one Minardi that's having a great race here, it's both of them, Verstappen and Christensen, running 6th and 7th. And they run for a good haul of points this day for themselves and for team manager T. Potts. He'll be wanting to do everything he can to make sure that both of those cars get to the end of this race. Mika Salo is there in 14th place. He's running quite well, up a couple of positions in the Forte Corsi. And Forte Corsi, they were the backmarker team of last season. Their team manager, Dave Goddard, not really taking it overly seriously. But coming into Season 2, he wants to get a bit more success. And the last race, he got that. Jeff Gordon, his other teammate, the NASCAR legend, finished 4th on the road and took home 12 points for the team, already bettering their Season 1 tally. Salo's up there into 14th place, so maybe a few more positions for him will be coming in this race, and he can get himself further up the order. On the YouTube live chats that we have here, Motorsport Mike, he is the team principal of the Midland Racing outfit. He has noted that Montero, who has climbed up from 18th into 11th, is now down to 13th, but still, that is an absolutely mega start there from the Portuguese driver, who wasn't at that team from the start of the season. He came in for round 2 to replace Nicola Larini, who started off the season for the Midland team, but after one race, Michael was not impressed with how he was performing and decided to bring in Thiago Montero instead. And so far, Michael, that has been a great choice by yourself to bring in the Portuguese driver, a one-time podium sitter in the real-life world of Formula 1, the infamous 2005 United States Grand Prix. And oh, we've got a car airborne here, Tom. John-Eric Verne getting involved there, and he's now been forced into the pits. And that was an AGS with him. I think that might have been Kevin Magnussen. And Magnussen climbing up over the wheels of John-Eric Verne, getting airborne, and both of them are now into the pits, presumably for repairs. And Tom, we only cut into that one partway through the incident happening, but how do you read that?
Yeah, it just seemed to be rather audacious from Magnussen. He was down the inside of Instead to see how he managed to do that. I just don't know whether Verne should have just let him through there at that point once he was already within the car's length. But yeah, it's a very strange incident between Magnussen and Verne, and now both of them will be in the pits for a replacement for front wings. Magnussen most definitely, as he landed very, very awkwardly back onto the road. But at least both drivers are still in the race, unlike some in the League 2 event.
So given that Kevin Magnussen was down the inside of John-Eric Verne, my guess on that was we'd have to go back and look at the replays later on, because we haven't had a replay come up live on the broadcast. My guess would be that Magnussen was down the inside and Verne just didn't want to give up the position, or maybe Magnussen got a bit of understeer. So it's a bit difficult to call that one without seeing the replay of it, so the stewards will look into that later on in the race. It could well be deemed as a racing incident, we'll have to find out later. But both drivers are now through the pits, they're back out onto track again, albeit in 25th and 26th positions. Here is Nico Hülkenberg still out in the lead of this race, 1.2 second gap to Andre Lotterer in second in the BMS. BMS having a much better season so far this time around. So if you remember, Tom, last season, they really didn't have that good a season at all. Like the points finishes were few and far between for the Italian team. Emma Featherstone has taken over that team for this season, transformed this around, and Lotterer now a bit of a constant front runner. So Tom, it's been a brilliant turnaround for that team.
Absolutely so, and there was the few occasions last year we saw James Courtney sort of up there a little bit in races like in Taupo and Fuji, I think it was, in Buenos Aires. And obviously Stefano Modena and Gabriella Tarquini were in the seats, but not in it this year. It's Andre Lotterer, and the other driver in there is Pietro Fittipaldi. So Pietro Fittipaldi is at the back of the field at the moment. Andre Lotterer, who already has a Grand Prix victory in this series under his belt in Marrakesh last year, is in second place behind Hülkenberg, who doing everything right so far. He just needs to keep the car on the road.
Well, it's still early days. We are riding on lap 5 out of 40. We are an eighth of the way through the League 1 race. And this performance that Andre Lotterer is putting in, not just here but over the course of the first couple of races of the season, it's not really going to be doing Pietro Fittipaldi any favours at all, because don't forget, Tom, after this race we have the upgrade window, which is also when teams are allowed to change their drivers if they so wish. And Andre Lotterer currently up there running in second, showing that there is clearly speed in the BMS Scuderia Italia. But Pietro Fittipaldi, he qualified 25th for this race, 1.7 seconds off the pace of his teammate. And that sort of performance isn't really good enough from someone like Fittipaldi. He is a champion in the junior ranks. He won the last ever Formula Renault 3.5 title. He had his debut outing in the real life world of Formula 1 last season in Sakir and then at the next race in Abu Dhabi. He's clearly got speed, but Tom, for some reason, it's just not working out for him so far here in the Grand Prix World Series.
No, and I think it's going to take some time for him to really acclimatise. I mean, he's still a young kid as well, is Pietro Fittipaldi. He's younger than me, actually. So,
well, he's definitely younger than me. I'm not going to broadcast exactly how old I am, but he's definitely younger than me.
Yeah, well, he's got a lot to learn in this series anyway. You can see Kobayashi locking up a little bit into turn 1. Keeps the car pointing in the right direction. I'll tell you one driver who's having a good race so far, Kazuki Nakajima, who is outshining Takuma Sato, his teammate in this one. Now, can he use his experience to produce an even better performance than what we saw from him in last time out in Adelaide? Because he finished on the podium in Adelaide, did Nakajima.
He did indeed. He took home a third-place finish there. It was a brilliant performance from Nakajima, and of course he had that fight with his teammate Takuma Sato and ultimately came out on top, which isn't just good in way of getting your first ever podium. Oh, a little bit of a look there from De La Rosa. So on Nakajima, it's not just getting your first podium in the series, Tom. It's also having that psychological advantage over your teammates and getting that first blow, if you like.
Yeah, well, it's a difficult part of the racetrack to be overtaken now. Is turn 7. You can see Sebastian Buemi struggling to get there in 18th. I don't know why BAR are so far off the pace again, Topher. It just seems as though that their car just doesn't seem to be up to scratch like it was last year, and I wonder if the teams from last year have managed to make up ground, or is it just as simple as, you know, a complete reset of the series with the new format of race distance, with the League 2 race as well. There's so much to consider.
Going from Season 1 to Season 2, we did have the regulation changes that came into place as Pedro De La Rosa loses out to Brendan Hartley there for 9th place. We did have the regulation changes with a complete reset to the power outputs of the cars. So they were all effectively reset to the same power output. And then from the pre-season budgets, which were also taken into account from their Season 1 performances, they then had the option of do they want to put more money on power or more money on reliability. And in Season 1, Tom Butterworth, he absolutely nailed it and managed to bring home both championships, Jean-Eric Vergne winning the drivers and BAR winning the constructors. And yeah, just simply, it hasn't worked out as well so far in this season. It's still early days, and Pietro Fittipaldi's dropping out of the race now. That is one BMS Scuderia gone. I think that's a possible suspension issue on the front left there. It looks like it's a little bit askew. So a possible suspension issue there for the Brazilian. He becomes our first retirement of the race. So BMS Scuderia Italia honours now being upheld by Andre Lotterer, who is running a fine race at the moment, up in 2nd place. There is Antonio Felix da Costa, and Robin Frains, having led earlier on after his lightning start from 4th position, is dropping well off the pace of the top 3. He's 7.1 seconds off of the lead and about 5 seconds by his teammates. And a little bit of a nudge there from the AGS on the Midland. I didn't quite catch which one was which there, but that will be an incident that the stewards will be looking into. It's basically a touring car move there, bumping them out of the way, which is fine in touring cars, but not so much in the world of Formula 1. So the stewards will be having a look at that to see what harm came to the AGS there, or to the Midland. I think it was actually being punted off. My apologies there. But looking back at the front again, here is Da Costa, who is keeping touch with Andre Lotterer, 1.1 seconds behind his German rival, who is in turn at 1.5 behind Nico Hülkenberg. So Hülkenberg has built up a bit of a gap there, just enough to be out of slipstream range. But he's not really running away with it at the moment, so maybe he's entered that phase of the race now where he's just preserving his tyres and his fuel before his pit stop. We don't know what the fuel strategies are going to be yet. We had some drivers yesterday on a 1-stop and some on a 2-stop, and some that we thought were on a 2-stop then turned out to be a 1-stop. It got very confusing as we were trying to work out who was doing what. It is still early days. We are only on lap 8 of the Sepang Grand Prix. There is Robin Frains in 4th position. He's got the track all to himself at the moment. 4.7 seconds behind Antonio Felix da Costa and a further 3.2 ahead of Kobayashi. So the order just settling down a bit now here, Tom, and we now look forward to when drivers are going to start making their first pit stops.
Yep, and if you remember, Grosjean pitted after around about 10 or 11 laps. We thought he was going to be going on to a 2-stop, but in actual fact he only pitted the one time, and it clearly paid off for him. He used a brilliant second stint to keep himself in front of the likes of Sam Bird and Alex Wurz. And are we going to get a repeat of it here? And who will blink first? Who's going to go into the pits to make their stop first? And what you've got to consider, which we saw in the League 2 race yesterday, are we going to be as being stuck in traffic once they come out from their stop?
We worked out that a pit stop at this circuit is around about 25 to 30 seconds based on how quickly your pit crew can get you back out onto the track again. So if Hulkenberg was to pit now, he would drop down to possibly outside of the top 15. We've got Andretti there in 15th place, 24.4 seconds off of the lead. And Di Silvestro's going slowly there. She had just cut off the advantage of Jaime Alguersuari a few corners ago as the Spaniard looked to make a move. But she's now grinding to a halt and will become our second retirement of the day. That looks mechanical to me, but we're not sure exactly what the issue is just yet. We will find confirmation of that later on. But Di Silvestro becomes our second retirement of the League 1 Sepang Grand Prix. We've got a few moves for position happening here. And that looks like it's Jaime Alguersuari up the inside of Sebastian Buemi. And Jamie Winkup's also having a look at Jeff Gordon there. We had a driver dropping down. It's Alguersuari who's dropped out. There's a driver plummeting down the order on the graphic. I was trying to adjust my eyes to find out who it was. Jaime Alguersuari has gone off. And I'm not sure if that's a driver error or a mechanical issue there. We've got another driver off there as well, Tom, if you can see. There's a BAR also, so maybe they've come together. Here is Alguersuari and Buemi. And oh, Alguersuari has locked up into the side of Buemi, so the Swiss, an innocent victim there. Alguersuari got it all wrong coming into turn 1 and just careered into the side of the BAR there. They're both trying to get back out onto the track again. Buemi's got the momentum and oh, he's giving Alguersuari a nudge. And there's a bit of an argument going on down there now between those two. And Alguersuari now runs over Buemi's front wing to get back out onto the circuit again. And he's away. Buemi will definitely have to come into the pits and get his front wing changed. I don't know if there's going to be any damage to Jaime Alguersuari after that one. But, oh, Tom, a calamity there for both those drivers. And it looked like it was a driver error from Alguersuari, and Buemi, just an innocent victim.
Yeah, the stream cut off from my side, Topher, so I didn't quite capture the whole. Yeah, it looks that Buemi did Alguersuari did career into the back of Buemi, nudging him off the road. So I think that's going to be something for the stewards to have a look at later on. And now both BARs are at the back of the field again.
So this is an absolute disaster for the BAR team so far, not just in this race, but in the season so far. They really haven't had the best start. So with the upgrade window coming up, Tom Butterworth, he's going to have to think about what he's going to do with his cars. So, the speed isn't really there, Tom, so he might want to put a bit more speed into the power of his engine, but at the same time he still also needs to make sure that the car does indeed get to the end of the Grand Prix. And, well, having a Prost career into the side of your car isn't exactly going to help matters, but maybe he should be focusing a bit more on power after this race, knowing how fast or how not fast his car's at the moment. Sorry to say it, Tom, but they are a bit off the pace at the moment, so we'll have to wait and see what he decides to do during the upgrade window. We now ride on board with Marco Andretti in 15th place. Now, Andretti, he was a late entry into the Grand Prix World Series because in the non-championship opening race in Vancouver, Sam Hall, the team principal of Manor Racing, actually elected to put Tom Cruise into the car. And that was of mutual interest to both of them because Sam Hall was getting the exposure of having a Hollywood legend in his car, but then Tom Cruise was also getting some material for an upcoming Hollywood movie. And Kobayashi has come to a halt. And that definitely looks mechanical for the Japanese. We're not sure what the issue is there. Kobayashi dropping out of 5th place. And that is going to be a blow for Emma Butterworth and the Arrows team. They still have Hulkenberg leading this race. But there must be worried faces down in the Arrows garage now. If one car can drop out with that mechanical issue, the same can happen to the other. We hope it doesn't. We'd love to see Hulkenberg finally take his first Grand Prix victory, but we still have a long way to go. We are only a quarter of the way into this race. And going back to what I was saying about Andretti quickly, the Manor team started off with Tom Cruise in a car so he could gather some footage for an upcoming Hollywood role of his. After that race, he said thank you and walked away. And Sam Hall electing to bring Marco Andretti into the fold for the next few races to see how he gets on. And it's been okay so far for him, hasn't it, Tom? He hasn't really lit the circuit up. He hasn't been right at the sharp end. But, you know, he's been up there challenging for points playing positions. And as it stands in the moment, Tom, he's about 6 positions behind his teammate.
Yeah, so he's sort of thereabouts, is Andretti. I think he's sort of playing in that number 2 position to Brendan Hartley. So he's there to sort of fill in the second seat. It was Lucas Di Grassi who was in that car last year. Not currently in it this year, but I'd like to think someone will want his services later in the campaign should they want to get rid of an existing driver. But yeah, Andretti's doing a fine job so far. It's just a matter of, can he get into the points by the end of this one? He is 30 seconds off the lead. So I would think that Hulkenberg would rejoin ahead of him, but Hulkenberg will want to stretch out his margin over the likes of Christensen, Nakajima, De La Rosa and co.
Now, Lucas Di Grassi, he was one of those drivers that I was very surprised to find out wasn't going to be on the grid for Season 2, as we see Takuma Sato make a move on Brendan Hartley there for 8th place. Lucas Di Grassi, he was always there or thereabouts in Season 1. He was up there fighting for the high reaches of points playing positions, and I think he got a podium or 2 last season as well. But he was always up there, and when he found himself without a drive for this season, I was expecting someone would snap him up without any questions asked, but no, he's found himself out of a race seat for this season, and with the first upgrade window and driver change window coming up after this race, maybe that can afford the Brazilian an opportunity to come back, Tom.
And Lucas Di Grassi, he came close to a few race wins, didn't he, in Kyalami and Estoril. Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised Sam decided to relieve of him, because I thought Di Grassi did good enough to get that seat. But he's gone with Andretti anyway. And yeah, can Manor take the fight to the likes of Arrows, who have started strongly, as have Simtek, but BAR have most definitely struggling so far.
And the Constructors' Championship leader at the moment is the Onyx Grand Prix outfit. A bit of a surprise championship leader at the moment, actually. So, they haven't got any race wins to their name at all, but they've just had a really consistent start to the season. Last time out, we had Kamui Kobayashi scoring a podium for them while Takuma Sato finished in 7th. And in the race before that, the season opener in Taupo, we had Takuma Sato taking 4th place there. So they've got a strong haul of points so far. And they're 1 point ahead of Simtek in the championship. And yeah, one of the things that we found out from Season 1 last time, Tom, is that it's not necessarily having the fastest car that will win you the championship. It's being the most consistent, and so far, consistency paying off for the Onyx team.
And Ryan Ferris will be rubbing his hands. He's already got the Group C Challenge title under his belt with the Mazda team. Can he do so in the Grand Prix World Series this year? It'll be fantastic for him.
So we do run other series beside this one. This is the Grand Prix World Series. It is a series for the underdogs of Formula 1. We have all teams that never won a Grand Prix in Formula 1, and we have all drivers that never won in Formula 1. And not just this one, we also have touring cars that we run to BTCC spec. We also have our Formula 1 Championship, where we started off in 1990, and we're working our way through to modern day on that one. Next up will be 1991 in that particular season. As Tom mentioned, we've also had the Group C Challenge running Le Mans cars, won by Ryan Ferris, who currently leads the championship in Season 2 of the Grand Prix World Series. We potentially have IndyCar coming up as well. That's being talked about as a potential series in the future. We've got a lot to be excited for here in the Retro Racing Managers League. If you want to get involved, get in touch with us. You can comment on this YouTube video, not just in the live chat, but also in the comments section afterwards. You can get in touch at downforceuk@hotmail.co.uk. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. If you want to get involved, drop us a line and we'll try and accommodate you and get you a team in any of the series that we will be running. But in the meantime, we are now focusing on the Sepang Grand Prix. This is the League 1 race. We ran League 2 yesterday, with Romain Grosjean taking an incredible victory there to take his and Pacific Grand Prix's first win of the season and of Grand Prix World Series for them. League One, this is the teams that were in the Grand Prix World Series last season. They have carried on into Season 2, some of them with new managers, but most team managers electing to stay on and go for another shot at the title. The title currently held by Tom Butterworth and the BAR team. Jean-Eric Verne winning the Drivers' Championship last time out. Not having the best start to this season so far, so we'll have to see how they work in the upgrade window that comes after this race. And as it stands, Tom, Hulkenberg eking out a bit more of a lead now. He's up to 1.9 seconds ahead of Andre Lotterer. Not really pulling away that quickly, so I'm expecting him to be on a kind of a similar fuel load here, which we haven't seen yet. But surely, Tom, we're going to be seeing the first pit stops coming up very soon.
Very soon indeed. You can see Sato continuing to fight his way through the field, passing Pedro De La Rosa for 7th place. He's now behind his teammate Nakajima. And Onyx having another good race so far. Having the sniffs today, Topher. Yesterday it was the sore throat, and now today it's the sniffs.
Just a slight sniff I had there. I thought I was enough away from the mic that you wouldn't be able to hear that.
We could always mute it, so...
Very good point, yes. But anyway, we are looking at Thiago Monteiro there, locking up into turn 1, running in the Midlands, a newbie this time around, and there is our first pit stop there. First scheduled pit stop anyway, Tom. Jamie Whincup coming into the pits from 16th position, running with the championship fighting Simtech team, and Whincup, he was a bit of an interesting shout by Scott Woodward coming into the season to give him a seat in the Grand Prix World Series. So far, not really living up to the same level of play as Scott Dixon, though.
No, I mean, Dixon clearly is a better driver than Whincup was there. I mean, don't forget, Stoffel Van Dorn was in that seat in the Simtech last year, and I thought he was the better choice to Whincup. So it's another one of those that I sort of feel a little bit baffled from team manager. See Andre Lotterer, who's about to lose 2nd place by the looks of it too, and suddenly Felix da Costa. Did Lotterer make a mistake somewhere because he's lost ground to Hulkenberg?
He might well have done, and da Costa forcing him as wide as he can, and get a bit wrong though, da Costa actually comes into the pits. So a little bit of a tactical move there from da Costa maybe to unsettle his teammate, sorry, not his teammate, his rival, as da Costa comes into the pit lane. So throwing Lotterer offline a bit, so Lotterer might be pulling into the pits himself in the next lap or two. Da Costa maybe just playing just slightly dirty there. Like, he didn't actually take out his rival, so I don't think the stewards will be looking into that one all that closely. Da Costa, the first of the front runners into the pits, and where is he going to come back out on track? Nakajima has come into the pits as well, out of 9th position. And da Costa is out onto the track in 9th place. So when Lotterer comes in for his pit stop, he'll be around about the same place as well. And on that basis, Hulkenberg, maybe around about Monteiro in 9th place. We'll have to wait and see how that one all pans out. We're riding on board with Lotterer, who's now dropped even more time to Hulkenberg. He was 2.1 seconds behind the race leader before that almost coming together with Felix da Costa. He's now 4 seconds off the pace. Here is Robin Frains, 13.1 seconds down the road. He's just not had the same pace as his teammate da Costa. He's still pulling away from Tom Christensen in 4th place. And here is Tatiana Calderon trying to make a move on a 40 Corsi. And there is a car on fire there. And ahead of Verstappen, that must be Pedro De La Rosa. So, Tom, that's one of your drivers, I'm afraid. The second one that's been in the wars today. And, yeah, I'm sorry to say it, Tom, but that is an engine problem for De La Rosa.
Yeah, and De La Rosa not being able to replicate a victory in Malaysia, and Mika Salo's gone.
Salo also showing us out on the graphic, and there he is being pushed through the gravel trap by the marshal. We haven't seen what has happened to him, so we will get confirmation of that later on, but his car is pushed to the side of the track, just behind the stricken Prost of De La Rosa. 2 cars out in quick succession. There is the other Prost of Jaime Alguersuari, and he's not going to enjoy seeing his teammates on the side of the road there. Because as we mentioned earlier on, Tom, with the BMS team, if it can happen to one car, it can happen to the other. And Verne getting very close to the back of the AGS there, almost having his front wing taken off. I believe that is Kevin Magnussen that he's fighting with, as Albon is up in 12th place ahead of Tatiana Calderon in the Lola. And Takuma Sato now pits out of 7th place. So da Costa through into P7 now. He's going to want to make the fresher tyres work as he pursues the gap of Nico Hulkenberg. The gap is 33.5 seconds between those two. We reckon it's about 25 to 30 seconds for a pit stop here. So as it stands, Hulkenberg would still pit and come out in the net lead of this race. Lotterer not really making any headway back into that gap of Nico Hulkenberg, and I can imagine, Tom, he's not going to be too happy under the helmet with the shenanigans of Da Costa earlier on.
No, of course not. And you can see Hartley locking up a little bit there in the minute. And then I would say Hulkenberg is in that window where he can most definitely get out in front of Christensen. If you look now, the gap is 28 seconds. So if you're Hulkenberg, do you come in this lap? Or do you stay out a little bit longer if he's got more fuel left in there?
It completely depends on his fuel load, obviously. We're currently on lap 16 out of 40, so we are approaching the halfway mark here. And these drivers who are now pitting, they are potentially on two-stoppers if they elect to go for a shorter middle stint. But it's getting to a point now where you would expect any of the drivers to now come into pits would be on one-stop strategies. So it will be fascinating to see how this one pans out, as Hulkenberg does indeed come into pits. So out of the lead, Hulkenberg pits, and Tom reckons are in front of Christensen, which I agree with, which would be absolutely fantastic for Hulkenberg, because then he'd have two cars between himself and Da Costa. There is Hartley and Da Costa in front of us there. So coming around the final corner, Frains has gone through for another lap into second place, while Andre Lotterer assumes the lead of the race. We're waiting to see where Hulkenberg is going to come back out onto track. He has now rejoined and just loses out to Tom Christensen. So he splits Christensen and Hartley to stay in fourth place. But on the fresher tyres, Tom, it shouldn't take that long for him to get back past the Minardi.
No, and I don't think it's going to take long for him to dispose of the Minardi of Christensen. And if he does so, he's got a clear track ahead of him. Although Christensen may be coming in for a pit stop sometime soon, which saves Hulkenberg a bit of hard work, but he's only half a second behind, so he won't want to be losing too much time behind him.
And there goes Da Costa past Brendan Hartley, so the Portuguese wasting no time in getting through the order, because much like Nico Hulkenberg and Andre Lotterer, he has a chance of winning this race. He is now one car, he's the only car behind Hulkenberg now in fifth place, as Hulkenberg gets chopped off by Tom Christensen. Christensen yet to come into the pits, so Hulkenberg will not be happy at all with this. But there is Da Costa with his tyres already up to temperature. He's closing in on the back of Nico Hulkenberg here. So Hulkenberg, he hasn't dispatched Christensen as quickly as he would have wanted to. They are coming towards the back straight now, so that will be an opportunity for Hulkenberg to get into the slipstream of that Minardi and get the move done. But Hulkenberg, he wanted to get out in front of that Minardi and it didn't quite work this time around. So the pressure is now on for him to get past the Dane, the legend, that is Mr. Le Mans himself. Andre Lotterer comes into the pits out of the lead, and now I reckon he's going to come out behind Da Costa here because of the shenanigans they had earlier where Da Costa forced him offline. Also, Da Costa's had a couple of laps on fresh tyres to build up, or rather to close down that gap to Andre Lotterer. So I'm expecting Lotterer to go into a net third place here. Here is Frains carrying on again. So Frains maybe was on the heavier fuel load, which would suggest his lack of pace earlier on. So it's becoming interesting with the pit strategies, Tom, because these drivers that have already pitted, possibly on one stop, possibly on two stop, is sort of that middle ground between where they could go either way. But Frains, it seems like, is going for a one-stop strategy here.
Yeah, and if Frains can stretch out his lead at the moment to Hulkenberg, who's got by Christensen now, so Hulkenberg will most definitely be eating to Frains' lead on the fresher tyres. And you can see there's another overtake there where it looks like Andre Lotterer down the inside of Brendan Hartley into turn 4. So Lotterer making his way back through the field after his pit stop. He's lost a position to Da Costa.
So Lotterer indeed does fall behind Da Costa into what is currently 5th place. Hulkenberg has now dispatched Tom Christensen, and we just saw briefly a moment ago that Da Costa was now stuck behind the Minardi. Here we are riding on board with Tom Christensen, who himself, much like Frains, is probably on a one-stop strategy here. So it'll be interesting to see how this race pans out for him and whether he can maybe even get the Minardi up into a podium position. We will have to wait and see how that one pans out. But Da Costa, from looking like he was getting onto the back of Hulkenberg and maybe challenging for what would have been the net race lead, is now stuck behind the Minardi, and Hulkenberg is clearing off in front. He's already got 2.5 seconds over the fighting duo. So Hulkenberg has effectively got away with it here. Here we are on the front nose cam of Da Costa. He's making a move on Tom Christensen now, so he takes 3rd place. and he gets past Minardi with some clear air now, but that will have absolutely hurt his chances of winning this Grand Prix, being stuck behind the yet-to-pit Tom Christensen. Fraines continues to lead up ahead, but still has to come into the pits, probably on a one-stop strategy now. But are the likes of Hulkenberg and Da Costa going to the end or going for a second pit stop? It's not yet clear, Tom.
It's not, but Grosjean was able to make the tyres last for about 30 laps on his second stint. So if Grosjean and co were able to do it, then Fraines will, well, I say Fraines, Hulkenberg and Da Costa will most definitely be able to do the same. You can see Jamie Whincup behind the sole surviving Prost of Jaime Alguersuari going into the last turn, and that's him up into 15th. So I have to say it's been a below par race for the Simtek team, because Dixon's not running that high up in 9th. But yeah, just as though the Sepang circuit is not Simtek's kind of circuit.
But now, if you look at the last race that we had in Adelaide, and Alguersuari's done it again! So Alguersuari once again getting it all wrong into turn 1, and I believe he has taken Whincup with him. We saw it on the onboard, and I think that he has taken Whincup with him. That is the second driver that Alguersuari has taken out of this race into a gravel trap, and surely the stewards must be looking down on that one. And Tom, I know you're supposed to remain unbiased as a commentator, but Prost is your team, Alguersuari is one of your drivers, and I'm going to have to ask you to look at that objectively, not as a team manager, but as a commentator. Do you think Alguersuari is going to be getting away with that?
No, I can't imagine so. I mean, he was alongside and the door was open, but it just wasn't executed very well. He just outbraked himself, locked up, and just careered into the side of the Simtek of Whincup, really. So, if anyone's to blame, it has to be Jaime on that one. And Jaime not getting the better of Jamie that time. It's hard to think that, really.
A little bit of a tongue twister there for you, Tom. Looking at the live chat, Ryan Ferris, who is the team boss of the Onyx Grand Prix team, the championship leading Onyx Grand Prix team, he's suggesting a race ban for Jaime Alguersuari, and, well, it's one for the stewards to look at, but if it happens once, Tom, then that could just possibly be a back of the grid penalty for the next race at Yongan, but twice in the same race, Tom, surely the stewards must at least be considering the possibility of a race ban for him.
Yeah, and I mean, there's Felipe Nasr in the reserve role as well. So, and he's yet to compete in the Grand Prix World Series, so at least that would give Nasr an opportunity. But Alguersuari is contracted to race for the Prost team. But yeah, the last thing he wants is a race ban, especially at this early stage of the year, when you're trying to fight for the championship potentially, and Prost making sure they don't fall out of the top 10 in the constructors.
So we've just had confirmation from Race Control that they are indeed having a look at Jaime Alguersuari. And, well, I'm not surprised at having a look. There's two drivers that he has put into the gravel trap in this race. Earlier on, it was Sebastian Buemi in the BAR. This time around, Jamie Whincup in the Simtek. So there goes Jamie Whincup into the pit. So he might well have had damage there that he's had to repair. And, oh, there's a bit of smoke behind Calderon there. I don't know if that was just a lockup or maybe an engine blowout for one of the drivers. The car directly behind her is Kazuki Nakajima. So we're talking about the Onyx team and Ryan Ferris. He's calling for a race ban on Jaime Alguersuari. And then, if that was indeed an engine blowout, there could be one of his drivers out of the race. But looking at the graphic, Nakajima's still running in 12th, so possibly not there. It might have just been a lockup there and couldn't quite tell looking at the footage earlier on. And here is Takuma Sato trying to get past teammate Nakajima. So, this is a continuation of the battle that we saw last time out in Adelaide. That time it was won by Nakajima as he brought home his first ever Grand Prix World Series podium. And yeah, it's battle resumed between those two. Sato not wanting his younger teammate to get the better of him, Tom.
No, and Japanese pride at stake as well. And the Japanese fans will most definitely be on their feet. You can see them going toe-to-toe again. And it's Nakajima who gets back ahead of Sato.
And it's been an absolutely fascinating dynamic between those two. It's an all-Japanese driver lineup that Ryan Ferris has gone for. And so far, it has paid off handsomely for him. Takuma Sato, the two-time Indianapolis 500 winner, alongside Kazuki Nakajima, former champion of the World Endurance Championship. It's a fantastic driver lineup that he's gone for there, and so far that is paying dividends as he leads the Constructors' Championship. We are now on to lap 21 out of 40. We have surpassed the halfway distance here. Robin Frains continues to lead this Grand Prix, having yet to come into the pits. So, depending on what the drivers do behind him, the likes of Hulkenberg, Lotterer and Da Costa, are they coming in for a second pit stop or are they not? We don't really know yet. And much like we saw in the League 2 race yesterday, we're seeing these pit strategies that, on one hand, may appear to be obvious, but maybe not so. This has been a fascinating dynamic across the field so far in terms of how the pit strategies are playing out. And yeah, it's really difficult to call so far who's going to win this race. We now ride on board with Robin Frains in the lead. He's got a 10.9 second gap over Nico Hulkenberg in second place, but still yet to come into the pits, as does Tom Christensen. And once again, we've got the two Onyx drivers fighting each other. Sato getting the jump down onto Kazuki Nakajima into the last corner. He gets the move through into 12th position, but I can imagine that Nakajima, Tom, is going to get him back. And Lotterer is in trouble. Lotterer becoming the second BMS Scuderia Italia to pull out of this race. Another mechanical issue for Emma Featherstone's team. So they've got a quick car, but as you know, Tom, not necessarily the most reliable. And there is the reason why you can see on the rear left tyre, the suspension has collapsed on that car. So maybe a circumstance of riding the curbs too hard for Lotterer as he's trying to close the gap back down to Hulkenberg and Da Costa. And ultimately, that's not paid off. That is both BMS Scuderi's out of this race, and Emma Featherstone's day is done.
I mean, she'll be absolutely devastated with that, because Lotterer's running really, really well, and on course for a great result for the BMS Italia team, looking to continue their solid start to the campaign. But no cars will be finishing from that squad this time around. So Lotterer out of the race, joining Salo, Della Rosa, Di Silvestro, and his teammate Fittipaldi, and Kobayashi as well. So I think that's 6 retirements so far in this one.
And Lotterer was actually looking good to potentially take the lead of the Drivers' Championship. He finished second last time out in Adelaide with a strong performance there, lasting the attrition and getting to the end, albeit 24 seconds off of the lead of Scott Dixon. And if he had finished second or third again here today, or maybe even a victory, he surely would have taken the lead in the Drivers' Championship. But as the saying goes, Tom, in order to finish first you must finish.
And I couldn't agree with you more. You can see Robin Frains continuing to have his lead cut down by Hulkenberg, and Hartley and Verstappen are both in the pits. So that's good news for Frains, actually, because that's a few less cars for him to overtake for when he completes his only pit stop. Thiago Monteiro up in 5th place in the Midland. Doing a fine job so far, but he's still yet to pit.
And we now look at Nico Hulkenberg, who is 9.9 seconds off of the lead of Frains. So he's not really making that much headway into the lead that the Super Aguri has. And so Brendan Hartley getting a bit wrong coming out of the pits there. It looks like he's managed to get it going again. But maybe on the colder tyres there, just getting a little bit crossed up into turn 1. He's now off and going again. He's in 11th place, so he's still got a possibility of some points here today. Verstappen is out in 12th place. And look at Montero up into 5th place. I don't believe he's pitted yet either. And the Midland, who came into the team in place of Nicola Larini, he's having a strong run here. He does have to pit, as I said. And I reckon if he pits, he'll be coming out in a similar sort of place to where Verstappen is at the moment. So points are a possibility here today, not just for Montero from Midland, but also for Paul Di Resta. They're in 10th place. So maybe a good day here for Michael Gillespie, the head of that team there. Frains still yet to pit, Christensen still yet to pit, Montero still yet to pit, and I don't think that Dixon and Andretti have pitted yet, have they, Tom?
No, they haven't. Dixon's still out on his first set of tyres. I'm just looking at his gap to the likes of Albon, Verne and co. So he'll most definitely come out in front of Albon. He'll rejoin behind the Hartley-Verstappen battle. So Dixon, at the moment, I think he may just scrape into the points by the end of this one, but it won't be very many points for him this time around.
And we've just had it come through on the race control that Jaime Alguersuari is going to be investigated after the race. So there is talk of him potentially getting a race ban, but as it stands, he is actually still running in this race. So I don't think it's really going to be a good move from the stewards to declare a race ban on him while he is in the car. So they have taken what I feel is a sensible decision that he will be investigated after the race. Whether that does transpire to be a race ban or not, we will find out and bring you all of the latest updates at the next round, which will be at Yonggam in South Korea. So we are highly looking forward to that one. It was a circuit that was a little bit underappreciated, I felt, in real life Formula 1, Tom. It was a bit of an interesting circuit in that it had a very high-speed Sector 1. It was just effectively 3 long straights, but then a tight and twisty second and third sector, making car setup an absolute nightmare, wanting to get the best of both the straight line speed and the setup work. It could be very interesting to see what happens when the Grand Prix World Series goes there.
Well, it'll be the Grand Prix World Series
Paul
first
di
time
Resta's
in...
gone off. Sorry to cut across you there, Tom, but Paul di Resta is off the circuit and his right rear tyre has been ripped off the car there, as well as his rear wing. Paul di Resta clearly out of this race, but what happened there? We only cut into it as he was already coming off the track. Robin Frames pulls into the pits, but as we were talking a couple of minutes ago about a potentially good points haul for Michael Gillespie and the Midland Racing Team, di Resta then goes flying off the circuit, so call it a commentator's curse if you want. I apologise if you think that's the case, Michael, but Paul di Resta becomes our latest retirement from this Grand Prix.
I wonder where di Resta went off there, because I couldn't quite tell by where he went off. Did he go off at turn 12 or 13 area?
I'm not quite sure myself, actually. We only cut into that crash happening when he was already into the gravel trap, so we'll have to wait to find out later. So Fraines has come into pits and he is in 4th place. Christensen has yet to pit himself. He's in 3rd, so Fraines will be promoted up into 3rd place when the Minardi comes into the pits. So Super Aguri looking on for a double podium here, which would be a fantastic result for them. Super Aguri were one of the more inconsistent teams last season. They took the first ever Grand Prix World Series pole position at the hands of Nick Heidfeld. He put it on pole ahead of teammate Timo Glock in the opening race in Kyalami, and Heidfeld retired out of 2nd place only 6 or 7 laps in. And yeah, it wasn't about as good as it got for Nick Heidfeld in that season. He got a few points finishes here and there, but was ultimately replaced by the man you are now looking at, which is Robin Fraines. And who's the other one? Timo Glock. He got 2 consecutive race wins last season. One in Birmingham and one in Helsinki, if I remember correctly, Tom. So he had a good couple of races and looked like he could have been challenging for the championship. But reliability really plagued the Super Aguri team last season. Timo Glock retired from more races than he finished. So reliability, as we've said many times, Tom, it plays a big factor in this series.
I'm interested to see how Fraines can react.
Oh, and Fraines! Fraines is off. Sorry, Tom, but Robin Fraines, he's on his way back into the pits again. We're not really sure what's happened there, but he came to a stop on the pit entry. And was he trying to come into the pits again for another issue, or did he get it wrong and he's been forced to come into the pits? We're not really sure what happened to him, but he is now dropping out of podium contention. That is an absolute disaster for the Dutchman. He was looking good for his what would have been his 2nd series podium. He took his first podium in only his 3rd race last season. And yeah, all of that hard work that Fraines has put in now undone by what appears to be a driver error.
I only saw him getting into the pit entry, to be honest with you, and yeah, there was nothing on the dash that said he had a problem. So I wonder if it was a driver error, and once he was at the pit entry, he was committing himself to going into the pits. So very, very bad news there for Robin Fraines. So that's him out of contention for the race victory. So it looks like it's a 2-way fight between Hulkenberg and Da Costa.
And Ryan Ferris getting in touch in the live chat. He may have spotted something that we didn't. I was actually looking at my notes when the di Resta crash started to happen. He believes that di Resta was punted up the back by Verstappen. So we will have to have a look into that at the end of this race to see if that did indeed happen. And Michael Gillespie, the team manager of Midland, who races Paul di Resta, he agrees that di Resta must have got hit by someone. So he's effectively backing up the arguments of Ryan Ferris there, even though it is against his own team. So we'll have to wait to see how that goes off. And Alguersuari once again getting it wrong into turn 1. So something's not right with the setup of that Prost. Luckily this time there isn't another driver there for him to career into the side of. But Alguersuari really not having a good time of it at the moment, and he is about to be lapped by Nico Hulkenberg.
nearly taking out the race leader as well when he tried to get back onto the racing line. So Alguersuari was lucky there. And I thought I saw a change of position. Has Tom Christensen got past Kazuki Nakajima?
Well, we can have a look at it here now. So there is Nakajima, who's got Hartley all over the back of him. Christensen is ahead of them, and Sato in 4th position. So Hartley going down the inside into 6th position there. We've got a nice little battle going on here. That is from 4th to 7th. We now look at Antonio Felix da Costa, the sole remaining Super Aguri, running in 2nd place, 7.5 seconds off the back of Nico Hulkenberg. And Dixon is up into 3rd place in the Simtek. I still don't know if he's pitted yet, Tom, has he? I don't recall seeing Dixon come into points because he's seemingly into 3rd out of nowhere.
Dixon's doing well, and I'll tell you one driver who's flying at the moment is Christensen, who's just gone past Takuma Sato and up into 4th place. So Christensen absolutely on fire at the moment. Can he have a say on that final podium position? He probably will be in the final podium position now because Dixon has still yet to make his stop.
And if Hulkenberg and Acosta do indeed have to come into the pits again, that's going to drop them around about into that territory. Well, Da Costa at least, he's half a minute ahead of Christensen. Hulkenberg, if he is to pit again, will probably come out around about where Dixon is now, but we believe that Dixon does still have to come in for a pit stop. And yeah, as you say, Tom, Christensen is having an absolutely fantastic race here. And I've actually just had a bit of news drop down here, Tom. As you know, we were talking earlier about Lucas di Grassi and how we were amazed that he hadn't been signed up into a seat for Season 2. So as it turns out, Mike Smith, with the Zaxby team in League 2, he's watching the broadcast at the moment. He's heard that Lucas di Grassi is available. He's thought that's a good idea. And he has just got in touch saying he's signing Lucas di Grassi to the Zaxby team as the reserve driver. So that is now Esteban Gutierrez out of a seat in the Grand Prix World Series. He loses his reserve driver role. Scott Dixon now comes into the pits from 3rd place. That is Christensen up in 3rd. And Albon has pulled off as well. Alex Albon in the AGS is out of the race. We're not sure what has happened to him there. We will get all of the information at the end of the race as we find out what has befallen the stricken cars. That is yet another retirement there. The first for AGS in this race. Magnussen still running, albeit in the bottom reaches of the field. And AGS looked to have a really good car at the start of the season, especially in a pre-season festival that we ran at Watkins Glen. But when it's come to the actual point scoring portion of the season, Tom, AGS have just been nowhere really.
AGS not having the best time of it. I mean, they can qualify the cars well, but when it comes to the races, they don't seem to be achieving much. I mean, Magnussen got a 6th place finish last time out in Adelaide, and the race before that in Taupo, I don't think they got any points in that one. So they're not having the best of times, are AGS at the moment. Phil Kinch may be looking at the upgrade window to see if he can improve the cars for next time out at Yongam.
I reckon he cannot wait for the upgrade window because the speed in the AGS, they have scored some points here and there, but they haven't really been challenging as much as we thought it would. And Alguersuari is now out of the race. We haven't seen how that has happened to the Spaniard, but there he is, and there he goes. A suspension failure on the Prost. The front left has gone, and I'm sorry to say it, Tom, but maybe that's for the benefit of the other drivers on the field.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, Alguersuari was at the back of the field anyway, so he wasn't going to be able to achieve that much from there. So yeah, it's the Prost team's first double retirement of the season, and that's through mechanical issues.
So a disappointment there for yourself and the Prost team. Alguersuari under investigation from the stewards for taking out 2 of his rivals earlier on, Sebastian Buemi and Jamie Whincup. We will find out soon after the race what decision they put on Jaime Alguersuari. Although I think I speak for both myself and Tom when I say we are expecting it to be a race ban for the next round in Yongam. Going back to that big breaking news we had just a moment ago, Tom, Lucas di Grassi finally getting a race seat back in the Grand Prix World Series, albeit in League 2 as a reserve driver. One of the things that Mike did say when making that announcement was that he might consider him as a replacement for Heidfeld in the next few races. And in the Zaxby team, Sam Bird very much has had the advantage over his teammate Nick Heidfeld. Bird got a mega 2nd place in the League 2 race yesterday, taking Wirtz on the last corner for 2nd place. And I don't think he'll be long before we see di Grassi back in a race seat, Tom.
I think Degrassi earns the right to be in the Grand Prix World Series. It's a shame that he's not in there at the moment. So, you know, out of the 26 teams in there, there's plenty of teams in the Grand Prix World Series now, so why not sign up Degrassi? He's got what it takes, clearly.
Yep, could not agree with you more. And there is Takuma Sato making a bit of a driver error into the penultimate corner, but he gets away with that. Onyx having another strong run here. They are up into 5th and 6th with Sato and Nakajima respectively. Nakajima looking like he's coming under a bit of pressure from the Minardi of Jos Verstappen. Minardi, another team that's having a much better outing this time around. They have one of the driver pairings that is at the older end of the spectrum with Tom Christensen and Jos Verstappen. But in some cases, Tom, experience matters more than age. Tom Christensen, a 9-time winner of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And here is Jos Verstappen, a long-time mainstay in Formula 1, not necessarily with the greatest teams. He did actually race for Benetton for a while and took 2 podiums in 1994, but that was as good as it got for Jos the boss. He then spent a lot of his career in the lower teams, just basically plodding along, trying to pick up any points he could here and there, before eventually leaving Formula 1 at the end of 2003 after a stint with the Minardi team, who he's now racing for again here in the Grand Prix World Series, and so far 7th place for the Dutchman. He's having a strong race, but having an even stronger race here, Tom, is his teammate, Mr. Le Mans.
And Tom will be most definitely been feeling so happy inside that helmet, but there's still a quarter of the race left, and he's still got to get the car to the checker flag. Verstappen's still pursuing Kazuki Nakajima's Onyx. So we've got 2 Minardis in the top 7, as well as 2 Onyxes, which is good to see for both Teapot and Ryan Ferris. And you've got your boy DeCosta in 2nd place there.
Yeah, I've been a little bit quiet about that because I don't really want to jinx anything. Myself and Tom, we do have teams in the Grand Prix World Series. And there is Robin Frains up the back of Jos Verstappen. We have a blowout there. So counting back from Frains, that must be Nakajima, I reckon. So that would account for his loss of pace, with Verstappen, Frains and Montero getting past him. Nakajima having a blowout, and that is not going to do the Onyx team's chances of retaining the lead in the constructor standings any good. Robin Frains gets past Jos Verstappen for 6th place. We run on board with Tom Christensen here, and Nakajima becoming yet another retirement in this race with an engine blowout. And after the stellar maiden podium that he took last time out, a little bit of a shock back down to earth there for the Onyx there, Tom.
Yeah, not good news. And I'm just having a look to see in terms of the team standings in the League 1 category, because it's very close between Onyx, Simtech and Arrows. Now, if Arrows were to come away with the victory, they would most definitely be leading the championship, wouldn't they?
I'm pretty sure they would be, yeah. So Onyx has a gap of 1 point over Simtech, and I think it's a further 5 points back to Arrows. So yeah, I think you are right, and there is Nakajima finally pulling off the circuit. The engine has gone in the back of that Onyx, and he is consigned to the sidelines for the remaining 10 laps here.
I have to say, despite that mistake coming into the pits, Robin Frains has made his way back into 6th place, and he'll be on the tail of the sole surviving Onyx of Takuma Sato. So can he get by him very, very soon? He's less than 3 seconds behind him through Sector 1. We'll see what the gap is now coming into Sector 2. You can see Hulkenberg continuing to extend his lead gradually to 8.8 seconds. And the gap now between Sato and Frains is 2 seconds, Topher. So Frains continuing to make his way back through the field.
And looking at the timings here in the graphic in the top left, if Frains hadn't have had to gone on his 2nd trip through the pits, I reckon he would be more or less right on the back of his teammate Antonio Felix da Costa here. Frains is on the fresher tyres. There is da Costa running in 2nd place, all out on his own. He's 8.9 seconds behind Nico Hulkenberg, and then a further, 22.5 seconds ahead of Tom Christensen. So he's driving a very lonely race here, and there is Christensen making a bit of an error getting on the power out of turn 2, but he keeps it on the black stuff. He's still going there in 3rd place and on for what would be a, quite frankly, incredible debut podium here.
Frains is dropping back, Topher.
Oh, and that's why Frains is out of the race. Well spotted, Tom. I hadn't seen that on a graphic. I was looking at the Minardi of Christensen. But Frains, after trying to recover back up towards the podium, is out. There he is, being pushed off by the marshal. We haven't seen what the issue there was. It could well be mechanical for the Dutchman, but that is a shame for him. He was looking strong to fight his way through, maybe to challenge Christensen for 3rd place and get both Super Guris onto the podium. But as it is, we now have 1 Super Guri left in this race. Da Costa running in 2nd place. But Hulkenberg, with 8 laps to go here at Sepang, is looking good for what would finally be his maiden Grand Prix World Series victory.
And is that... I was just going to say, does that look like a problem there for the Minardi there? It looks like it was pulling to the side, but no, it was just on the racing line. But yeah, it's a big blow to the Super Aguri team, who look on course for getting both cars in the top 6, but not to be this time. Brendan Hartley and Takuma Sato keeping on at 4th and 5th, and Jamie Whincup not having the best of races so far. He's struggled again today, hasn't he, Jamie? I know he's had the comment together with Jaime Alguersuari earlier on, but he didn't have a good race in Adelaide, taken out at the start, and I don't think it was right up there in Taupo either. So question marks are beginning to be raised. I know we're only 3 races into the year, which I, for one, personally would want to give drivers time to really be assessed as to whether they are Grand Prix World Series material or not. But Jamie Whincup is not having the best of times of it.
And at the end of the day, it is down to the team managers to decide what they want to do with their drivers. Some of them are adopting quite a draconian approach to the Grand Prix World Series in that they don't really give them a chance. If you take the example of Michael Gillespie, for example, he only gave Nicola Larini 1 race before deciding to drop him completely and bringing in Thiago Montero into his place. Now, Jamie Whincup, he was an interesting choice for Scott Woodward to take on for this season. As you mentioned earlier, Tom, their driver last season was Stoffel Van Dorn, who is now the reserve driver. Me personally, I was very surprised that he didn't take Van Dorn on for a 2nd season, but his argument was that Van Dorn was a bit too inconsistent at the time. So you can kind of understand Scott's thinking behind wanting to put him into the reserve role. As for Jamie Whincup, he is a proven talent, but he's a proven talent in the world of supercars, where he's won a championship, I think, 7 times over there. So effectively, the Lewis Hamilton or Michael Schumacher of supercars, coming over to the world of Formula 1 in the Grand Prix World Series. And oh, there is Scott Dixon, who's pulled off. So speaking of the Simtech team, we were talking about one of their drivers in Jamie Whincup, and the other one, who is leading the championship, is now out of the race. It's not going to be 2 in a row for Scott Woodward. It wasn't looking likely for this race anyway, but that is an unfortunate retirement for the Simtech team. And Scott Woodward, he wasn't really too happy with the overall reliability of the team from Season 1, so he put some work into that for Season 2. And so far, it has paid off, as he finally took his first Grand Prix World Series victory last time out in Adelaide. But this time around in Sepang, it is an early end of the race and an early shower for Scott Dixon. A real shame for him there.
So none of the top 4 in the Drivers' Championship are in the points. So it's most definitely going to spice up the championship even more. I would think that if Hulkenberg was to win this one, he would lead the championship. I was going to see what his total so far is this season. No, he hasn't had any points so far this championship. So he wouldn't lead the title race after this round, but it'd most certainly be right up there.
So we ride on board with Nico Hulkenberg up there in the lead. We are on lap 34 out of 40. We're nearing the conclusion of the Sepang Grand Prix. And Hulkenberg and Da Costa were both early-ish pitters. They were sort of in that window where it could have been a 1-stop or a 2-stop. Looking at the lap they were on now, I'm guessing they are going through to the end of the race. And that would be Hulkenberg completing his maiden Grand Prix victory if he makes it all the way through. But as we know full well, Tom, it is not over till it's over. We could still see some reliability issues plaguing the cars, but if you remember back to the League 2 race, Tom, yesterday, we had overtakes for position on the last corner of the last lap. Hulkenberg and Da Costa might be safe from that, as they've got the gap to anyone else. Christensen's got himself a nice gap in 3rd place there, 8.3 seconds ahead of Brendan Hartley. And Whincup having another moment there, so is he effectively assuming the role of Jaime Alguersuari now, locking up into turn 1? I don't really mean to be flippant about that, Tom, but yeah, he's made a couple of mistakes there now. And we were talking about Stoffel Van Dorn in the reserve driver role, and Tom, you mentioned earlier that it might be a bit early in the season to make any driver changes, but I'm thinking that Scott must be at least considering it.
Well, I would think that Whincup will get to the end of the race on this one, but he'll most definitely want to be coming away from Sepang as quickly as possible. It's not been a good day for Squidward this time, or for the Synthetic team, but it's most definitely been a good day for Emma Bosworth, with Nico Hulkenberg, who had been on pole position at the start, and has been dominating this one ever since, really. Costa, I'm sure he'll be very happy with his second place.
And we had a brief shot there of Nico Hulkenberg coming up to the back of Kevin Magnussen in 13th place, the next driver to be lapped. And Da Costa looks like he's there behind Jamie Whincup now, so he's now starting to come up to the back markers himself. It's looking very likely that it's going to be these two who will occupy first and second in this race. Of course, we still have 5 or 6 laps to go here in Malaysia. Tom Christensen with a gap there he is. With a gap of 7.2 seconds over Brendan Hartley, the vice champion of Season 1. Hartley's been a little bit quiet so far in the opening stages of this championship. He has been up there though. Just looking at my notes here to see where he's finished. He had a transmission issue at the last race in Adelaide. And then India Taupo race, where did he finish? He finished 14th. So he didn't have a great opening race of the season. In Adelaide, he was running in the points when he had his transmission problem, and he's now up there in 4th position. But now, if you cast your mind back, Tom, to the Season 1 Championship, Brendan Hartley was absolutely nowhere in the first portion of the season. He was getting points finishes here and there, but not really troubling anyone. But then come the second half of the season, he absolutely came alive. He took 4 race victories and worked his way up into the vice champion position just behind Jean-Eric Vergne there. And Brendan Hartley, for this season, he wanted to hit the ground running. And we're now into the 3rd race of the season. He's looking good for a 4th place finish here. So, potentially, Tom, a better start to the season for the Kiwi.
Yeah, and Hartley will be happy with that. He'll be satisfied. He's more thinking about the latter stages of the year rather than the opening stages. But if he gets some good points on the board already, then that will be fantastic for both him and for Sam Hull. Marco Andretti also in the points in 9th, which is a satisfying performance from him. And Tatiana Calderon up in 8th.
Yeah, I just saw Calderon there actually. She has been absolutely nowhere so far this season. In the opening round in Taupo, she qualified dead last. And then last time out in... there's Jean-Eric Vergne off the track. Another retirement from this race. And the reigning champion drops out as we are only a handful of laps away from the end of this race. He might just about be classified in this one. It's going to be closer to whether he actually does get a classified finish or not. And classified finishes are actually important here because they mean prize money. If a driver retires from the race before we reach 90%, they don't get any prize money out of it. Whereas if they are a classified finisher, they get a bonus 50 grand to put into their prize money. And I think you're right, Tom. I think that was before the 90% race distance. We will have to find out. And Da Costa is into the pits. So is this a scheduled pit stop for the Super Guri? A quick splash and dash, maybe? Christensen goes through into 2nd place. And don't forget, earlier on, Da Costa pitted around about the same time as Hulkenberg. I think there's only 2 laps between them. So does that mean that Hulkenberg also has to come in for a splash and dash? He's got a gap of 28.8 seconds to Christensen. So if he does, that's going to be very touch and go as to whether he gets out. And oh, we've got a spin there for an AGS. And that must be Kevin Magnussen. It is. He tries to spin his way back onto the circuit. He's gone now to the infield. He was with, I think it must have been Buemi, maybe? Look at right, and Whincup went through after Magnussen had gone off, so it might have been Sebastian Buemi that he's got tangled up with there. Looking at the on-board there, I think that Magnussen simply got it wrong and span in front of Buemi, so I don't think there's going to be any blame apportioned onto the BAR there, but not ideal for the AGS there. He's in 13th and out of the points. But, yeah, what I was saying about the classified finishes, if they complete 90% of the race distance, each driver is guaranteed 50 grand for their team's prize money. And Tom, I believe that Vergne just fell short of that.
Yeah, he has. And just to correct you on the Magnussen one, he didn't make contact with Buemi. Buemi had nothing to do with the incident. It was just that Hulkenberg was trying to lap him. Magnussen went wide at turn 8 and got on the curb and spun around as he bounced back onto the racetrack.
Well, thank you for clearing that one up. I was looking at my notes just before that happened, so I kind of had to get my mind back into looking at the video of that one. So, yeah, thank you for clearing that one up, Tom. Magnussen getting it wrong all on his own. and dropping down into 13th place behind Jamie Whincup. And there he is, with his tail between his legs, as it were. I don't think he'll be particularly happy with that one. And Phil Kinch, the team manager of the AGS team, he will be looking towards the upgrade window to see how he can get the best out of his car. And Antonio Felix da Costa, he has come in for a pit stop, which we think will have been a quick splash and dash. He might have been running out of fuel towards the end. He's now 2.1 seconds behind Brendan Hartley, so on a fresher tyres, he might well catch him to get back onto the podium again. Christensen is actually closing in on Nico Hulkenberg, so if Hulkenberg also has to do a quick splash and dash, this might well be looking good for Christensen to win the race. We don't know what Hulkenberg's going to do yet. We are on the third to last lap here. I will be amazed if Hulkenberg does indeed have to come in again, but I reckon he's done enough to go to the end here. There is Tatiana Calderon in 8th place. Now, as we were saying earlier, Tom, she was absolutely nowhere in the first couple of races, qualifying 26th and 25th. For today's race, she qualified a bit of a better 22nd, but now she's up into 8th place. She's had an absolute barnstormer of a race here, Tom.
She's been absolutely brilliant, a much better time with it, and yeah, and you can see Da Costa passing Brendan Hartley now for 3rd place. So Da Costa back up into a podium place, but I think he's going to run out of time to make inroads on Christensen as Hulkenberg begins the penultimate lap of the Sepang Grand Prix. He is 2 laps away from his maiden Grand Prix World Series victory.
And this will be a very popular victory as well across the paddock. Emma Butterworth will be absolutely elated with this. It would be her 2nd victory of the season. Kamui Kobayashi winning the opening race in Taupo. And now Nico Hulkenberg is about to get his maiden Grand Prix World Series victory. It is a victory that a lot of people, irrelevant of what team you're at, a lot of people have been excited at the prospect of Hulkenberg finally getting a Grand Prix victory. We are now 2 laps away from that happening as Da Costa puts in the fastest lap of the race as he chases down Tom Christensen. He's 9.5 seconds behind the Minardi, so in 2 laps he's got to get at least 4.5 seconds out of Minardi in that time. I don't think he's going to do it. That late pit stop has hurt Da Costa's quest for 2nd place. A podium still will be very welcome there. And it's that Brendan Hartley going slowly. It's an electrical problem for Brendan Hartley. Just a few laps from the end of this race. That is a real shame for the Manor team. Hartley drops out of 4th place. Sato goes through and says thank you very much. And Calderon is in the pits as well. She's going to drop out of a possible points paying position. So it's all kicking off here in the last couple of laps of the Sepang Grand Prix. And that's why Calderon's in the pit. She's got a throttle problem. So an absolute disaster there for the Mastercard Loader team run by Alan Charles for this season. He was looking forward to getting some points on the board with Tatiana Calderon. And Tom, if you remember in the non-championship Vancouver race, do you remember who won that race?
It was Simona Di Silvestro, I think it was, or Tatiana Calderon. It was one of those two.
It was Simona Di Silvestro in the other loader, so the speed was evidently there for the team in the opening part of this season. But when we've come to the actual point scoring rounds, they haven't really been anywhere. It's an absolute mystery as to where their pace has gone. Calderon, she was looking good to get some points, and I think she's actually come out of the pits in what is currently 9th place, but will still become 8th place, which it does now as Hartley drops down. So it looks like Calderon's actually got away with that one. She had a throttle problem, as it showed on the dashboard of her car. Calderon's still running in 8th place and on course for her first points of the season. We are now on the last lap of the Sepang Grand Prix. Hulkenberg is indeed going to the end. Da Costa has got the gap to Christensen down to 6.7 seconds, which is a huge jump, but it's not going to be enough. So Christensen looking likely for a very good 2nd place finish here. And Montero up there in 5th place as well. He's had a really strong race up there in 5th position. Here is Tom Christensen in 2nd place. This is going to be a very welcome podium for the Minardi team. They didn't look like they were going to have a particularly strong season this time around. They were a race-winning outfit last time at the Taupo round, the race won by Marc Genet, who now occupies the reserve driver role. And we are now looking at Nico Hulkenberg, who is entering the last sector of the lap. So he's only got a handful of corners left before his maiden Grand Prix Series World Series victory, rather. And can you imagine the scenes in the Butterworth household here? We have the reigning champion team of BAR with the reigning drivers champion John-Eric Verne on one side of the marital there. And on the other side is now what appears to be a 2-time race winner out of 3 this season. Nico Hulkenberg comes out of the final corner, and he has done it. Nico Hulkenberg wins the Sepang Grand Prix. It's finally a maiden Grand Prix Series World Series victory for the German. He finally breaks his duck in this championship. We're going to have Tom Christensen come home in second, and Da Costa will fall just short of that second place. But Tom, what a victory by Nico Hulkenberg there.
Absolutely fabulous, and it's been a long time coming for Hulkenberg, but he's absolutely deserved it, without a shadow of a doubt. But let's give the driver of the day to Tom Christensen. He was absolutely brilliant from start to finish. He qualified very strong up there in 8th place, and to get up to second is a magnificent achievement, and Da Costa coming home third behind him. So Minardi will be very happy with that, with both Christensen and Verstappen in the top 6. Brilliant job.
I could not agree with you more, Tom. Driver of the day for me definitely has to be Christensen. We didn't really give him that much hope going into the start of the season. We knew that he was quick. We knew that he had the experience. But age wasn't particularly on his side. But he has shown today age might not be that much of a factor in this championship, as he comes home in second place. In the end, 4 seconds ahead of Antonio Felix da Costa. So a brilliant second place for him there, and a deserved driver of the day. Sato comes home in 4th place ahead of Thiago Monteiro, who also puts in a very strong performance himself. He started 18th and got up into 5th position, so maybe another contender for driver of the day there. Verstappen makes it a double points finish for Minardi in 6th. Andretti bringing home some points for Manor in 7th place, although they would have wanted more before Hartley's untimely exit from this Grand Prix. Tatiana Calderon, what a run by her as well. Going from 22nd on the grid up into 8th place. Buemi brings home a couple of points for BAR in 9th, and Jeff Gordon a points for Forti Corsi in 10th. There is the official end of the race, and here are the official results. Nico Hulkenberg, finally a Grand Prix winner, ahead of Tom Christensen. Da Costa takes his first ever podium in 3rd place for Super Guri. Sato ahead of Monteiro for 4th and 5th. Then we have Jos Verstappen, Marco Andretti, Tatiana Calderon, Sebastian Buemi and Jeff Gordon rounding out the points finishers. And then the lapped cars, Jamie Whincup in 11th, ahead of Kevin Magnussen. Then we have Brendan Hartley in 13th, and John-Eric Verne in the end was actually classified, so an extra bit of bonus money there for the BAR team. And then the retirees, Dixon Fraines, Nakajima Alguersuari, Albon Di Resta, Lotterer De La Rosa, Solo Kobayashi, Di Silvestro, and Fittipaldi, the first of the drivers to fall out of the League One Sepang Grand Prix. So, an absolutely fascinating contest there, and yet another first-time winner to follow up the first-time winner that we had last time out in Adelaide. And there is confirmation of Da Costa absolutely smashing the fastest lap there on the end. Low fuel, fresh tyres. No surprise there that he took home the final point for the fastest lap. And Tom, what a Grand Prix that was. We were expecting some action, and we definitely got it. How was that for you?
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought some of the drivers that we didn't think would do as well as they have done, particularly Tom Christensen, Jos Verstappen, Tatiana Calderon, Thiago Monteiro, they were all fantastic getting to the end of the race, and it's going to tighten up the championship incredibly now. I think Sato, by the looks of things, with his 4th place, I believe he's the new championship leader.
We will bring you all of the updates as to the championship standings, not just the next race, but also on our fandom page. If you check the link in the description of this video, you can find a link to it there. You can find all of our championship standings and also find more information about all of the leagues that we are running. We have the 1991 Formula 1 World Championship coming up. We are running a touring car season as well. We're planning IndyCars at some points in the future as well. There's a lot going on here in the Retro Racing Managed League. Make sure you get involved. Next time, as we've mentioned, it will be Yonggam in South Korea making its comeback onto the Formula 1 calendar. And Tom, how excited are you to be racing back at the Yonggam circuits again?
It's been a long time coming, isn't it? And was it 8 years now since Formula 1 last race there? And now the Grand Prix World Series gets his opportunity to race on that underrated Yonggam circuit. And I feel like it should have been given a little bit more time for it to establish itself. I think money does come into it, doesn't it? So maybe if they improve the facilities and in terms of infrastructure over there at the Yonggam circuit, that may give an idea to Formula 1 in terms of going back there in the future. But in regards to the Grand Prix World Series, it's a privilege to be going back there again. And I hope we do get a lot of overtaking there, just as we have done here in Sepang.
Well, we will have to wait and see how that all pans out. We plan to bring you that next race next Wednesday if everything goes according to plan with our broadcast schedule. So make sure you tune in there, and thank you very much for watching today. My name is Topher Smith, alongside me Tom Cairns. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.